All right, cool. So we're live with
Awesome.
Johnny the coach. What's your real name?
Johnny Ioannou, which means coach is a lot easier to say.
I know. I see your. I love your little info. Your cartoon character. I don't know what it's called. Bit emoji or cartoon character.
I don't know. I'm lucky enough. I've got a friend that does it. He does it for Liverpool actually. A lot of the Liverpool players, and reached out to him. So I thought it looked cool on my Instagram, and I think it does.
I was like, I wonder if he actually looks like that. I want to meet someone that looks nothing like this. That would be.
Yeah. I've had a few people question it, but I'll take it.
Yeah. So originally, I'm guessing you're from part of the UK, from England somewhere?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in London. Moved here probably about 10 years ago to do a summer camp, and that's Chicago, Illinois. But born and raised in London, started coaching in London, but really took it seriously, I guess, when I moved here, surprisingly.
What part of London?
Northwest London, like near Camden Town.
Okay.
So a pretty cool area. A few cool celebs from there.
Yeah, up and coming area. So
yeah.
So you've been in the US 10 years now?
So I came out to do my first summer camp 10 years ago when a company called UK International came out, did 3 months, loved it in Chicago, loved the how many people were involved in the soccer out here. Like the families really get behind it. They come and watch the games, and they got their flags and all this kind of stuff. I've never seen that in London, surprisingly, and it really made me fall in love with it here. I really got more passionate about it actually here.
So that's a good kicking off point then. Let's because you're probably qualified to speak about this certainly more than I am, because I've been over here for 20 years and I was never involved in youth soccer or coaching until I came here and got started probably about 10, 11 years ago. So what do you find are like the different major differences between sort of youth soccer in London and youth soccer where you are in Chicago? Because that kind of surprises me that it's more supported, or people are more into it, as you said, over here than they are back home, is it?
Yeah, I could only say from my experience coaching just a regular grassroots team in the Watford Friendly League in London. That's where I started. I had like a U10 boys team at the time, and it would be like parents would drop off their kids with like one parent, and then there'd be like 5 or 6 parents watching the game, which is fine, and they get into it while they're there and stuff. But when I moved here, it was like go to the first game and there was like 20, 30 people watching, grandparents, cousins, they all come down and watch. They're there an hour early, they stay an hour later. Everybody else at the club. The club that I joined had about 12 teams at the time. We now have like 44, but you almost started to get to know all the parents from the other teams. Everyone would stay and watch other games. And it was just kind of like this great environment of you're all part of this team and we're all here to support each other. No one was really, you get a few American parents who shout out some silly things on the sidelines, but not as bad as it is in England sometimes, because everyone kind of thinks they know more in England because they played or they coached at some point. So they're trying to coach on the sidelines, I think, a bit too much. Here they just enjoyed it, they loved it, and they're really appreciative of you as a coach. They just kind of, you're almost like a local celebrity. It just felt amazing to do what I did, which encouraged me to do a better job. I almost felt like I need to do better now because they think of you as a great coach.
That's a common thread on Twitter as well. Like, do you feel that you're perceived as a bad coach because of your accent?
I've had it both sides here. Okay. They think you're already a good coach because you have an English accent, which I don't think is right. Then you've got the other side of the coin is where a lot of people just almost think, they're another English coach who thinks they know what they're doing, but just because they're English, they think they're better. And then they're already putting you down. So you get both sides of it. But I've been lucky enough that the club I work for and the people I've worked for, I would say 99% I've had amazing experiences. So I wouldn't want to, I'm sure other people have had different experiences, but I know other coaches that have said that, where like just because they were English, American coaches are already saying they don't like it, they come in. And I get that. They come in and they think they already know better. And then I've had other coaches who are English and I don't think they're good coaches, but because they're English, the parents love them.
Yeah.
So I don't think it matters where you're from. I don't think any of that. I've seen some great American coaches. I've seen some terrible ones. Same.
I think it's maybe it's a result of all of the maybe a result of the English programs, like the different camp programs that have sent coaches over here. Like I rarely hear that comment though with regard to like South American coaches or Italian coaches. It's usually like, oh yeah, it's the old English accent. But yeah, it definitely like you said, right? It'll work both ways. So if you're a good coach and you have an English accent, then you might get dumped in that bin, right? Of and then flip side is if you're a shit coach, like the accent isn't going to make you any better. So
yeah, I think people generally, I just think sometimes it's like if you're coming into an environment, it depends on how. If you're there and you're willing to learn from each other and respect everybody else as a coach, I think you generally get on with everybody. But I do think some people, and it's regardless of the culture, come in maybe already thinking they know more than other people, and that will already turn people against them. And I guess I know when I first came here, you know, the club I work for now is a travel club. I actually started as a recreation club with AYSO. So we're like a travel version of AYSO. So when we first came here, we were technically trainers, but the coaches were parents. So I completely understand you're a coach and you're working with these parents who don't know what they're doing, but they're volunteering their time. So they'll be doing some crazy stuff. So you're already almost doing an R in at their sessions. So I get how that would upset them, but also you're already thinking you're better. No one knows how to coach out here, so you think you're better. So I guess it sets the tone, not how it should be, but I can see how you would do it from an American point. You could be like, these guys come here, they already think they know better than us. And the other side, you could see some crazy stuff. When I first came out here, some of the sessions I saw, honestly, it was insane. But then they were parents or volunteers that never played, so you can't judge them. But I can see how you'd be like cringing.
Yeah, I mean, if your point of reference is you have very little knowledge of the game and you've been no coaching courses, then or instruction or ideas on how to run it, then you're just going to do what you've seen other people do or what's easy, right?
Exactly.
Do you find like, so I kind of been digging into and trying to understand a little bit more, like you said, your club was AYSO recreational, like
yeah.
Do you find the setup and structure here overall more confusing than it is back in England?
I would say, I guess, yeah, because I'm still figuring it out, to be honest with you. I would say there's so much other stuff going on that is probably not in the best interest of improving players for the long-term pool. I guess in England, you feel like it's grassroots, and then you want to get, if you're lucky, one of your kid gets to go to play for a professional academy, right? And then from there, they move up the triangle, whatever. Here, there's so many, the bottom layer goes wider, and then the second layer goes wider. And I don't think they're all trying to get to the kid to get them to be the best they can be. It's maybe get them into their team.
I might find it's like, instead of it being like, I mean, I've just long discussions with many people about this, but I find sometimes it seems like instead of it being like one pyramid with a peak, it's like tons of different little peaks and big peaks, and the base is wider, and it seems here like everybody seems to think they're the top of the pyramid or the elite part of it, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if you have seen this, and I've seen this, and it took, again, when you're coming from outside of the system, you don't really know what your job is. Like, what are you trying to achieve as a coach with these teams, you know? We're not an academy, so we're not trying to get players into a first team, right? So what's your job? And then you have other coaches who want to keep a player because it makes their team better. Right. And then you've got other clubs that are trying to get that player, but all they're doing is moving sideways. But what's the long-term goal for that player? Not what your goal is, what your team's goal is. And I think you get caught up in these arguments with people, and then parents see the next shiny thing and they want to go there. But then I'm confused. I was confused about what is your job as the coach, and what should be the long-term goal for a great player that you have, let's say.
Yeah, I find sometimes it's just I hate the word, but the pathway is more over here. Like, it seems like it's more manufactured.
Yeah.
It's not actually, the pathway in the UK or other countries is quite clearly defined, and no one really argues with it, right? Like if Man City's academy comes knocking on your door for your 9-year-old, there's really no debate as to whether that's the top level. Whereas here, like you said, there's a lot of moving sideways. It's not
there's
really
a lot of academies here.
Yeah, it's a different league, or it's a different. So I kind of struggle with that, and it seems, on the one hand, I like the fact that in the US there are several different, I guess, like governing bodies for the youth soccer. But then it's almost, that has now become who you're registered with. It has a connotation, right? I think that if you're with AYSO, and then I think the perception is you're the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And then if you register with US youth soccer, then your club is better. And really, I always ask the question, like, what is the governing, what does that get you, right? How does that make you better? How does that make your club better? Like, do you just pay more money, or do you have better insurance? Like, it's kind of...
I definitely think there's some people out here that think the more expensive your club is, the better club it is. And parents will be willing to go to that club because it charges more. Or they talk a little bit bigger about what they do, and they say all these crazy things, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And what I think I've learned, or I'm trying to come to terms with, it really doesn't matter. It just matters about the coaching. It matters about the coaches you have and how you're developing players. Doesn't make any difference from what team it is, how much you're paying. The coaching's good. That's all that matters. The problem is we all have different opinions on what good coaching is, maybe.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you that. I was going to say, what is good coaching, right?
Yeah, I think this is something I struggled with, and I've definitely not been a good coach my whole time. I'll admit that straight away. My first couple of years out here, even back in England, I was not a good coach, I realised. I had the right intentions. I know that. I've never made it about me. I've never wanted to, upset a kid because I want to do something, or play someone too long, or win a game just for the sake of winning it. But I wasn't doing great sessions. And I would say that as far as like the old typical, there was longer lines, or we were doing possession games that didn't lead to anything else. They were getting things that I was taught. There was laps to warm up. There were standing stretches. Sessions that I thought was good because someone did that with me, but weren't actually good for the kids. And it took me longer than I wish it did take me to figure out that wasn't good coaching. And I put that down to maybe not being around enough good coaches, which is something.
So what kind of changed your mind on those things?
The more I got into coaching, the more I would research. And I say research like podcasts, chatting to other coaches like this, figuring out somebody that I thought was a good coach that maybe I worked with, and then kind of seeing what they did. And then just the more you look into it, the more you realize, you start picking up little bits, and then you try to improve yourself, I would say. Courses, they were okay. I've done a couple of courses here and stuff. I'm doing my C license as we speak. But honestly, it's just from seeing other coaches, listening to podcasts, watching things online, and just building up this kind of database of the idea of what you want to be as a coach, and then kind of finding things to support that, but also challenge you. So I would say that's been my development. I don't know about you, how you felt like you've developed. I don't think anybody starts off being a great coach, personally. But I think everybody starts off with different intentions.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, for me, I think, like you said, each person is different. But I think the big factor is I've never really seen anyone who's, even if they've taken a lot of courses, that's come straight into it and been good at it straight away.
Yeah, you can't.
Because I think a huge part of it is, at the end of the day, right, you're dealing with humans, and you're dealing with kids, which is even more complex. Every group you get is different. It's not, even if you coach, you coach U8, U9s for like 5 years, and that's your age group. Every age group that comes through you get will be different. So I find that coaching courses some are good, I find that it's more, for me, it's the coaches that have been in it a long time that have had those experiences and experienced those different scenarios, and have actually had time to try and see what works with a certain type of player or child, depending on what age they're at, what stage they're at.
Yeah.
And then over time, also you have to be willing to challenge. Well, you got to be willing to try new things that's outside of your comfort zone. You got to be willing to challenge what you actually think by putting it into practice. I think too many of us, we just, we get a session plan, we put it on, it's good, and sometimes we don't know why we're coaching it, what the point of it is, but it looked good, kids enjoyed it maybe, and we just stick with that, right, for a long time. We never really challenge.
So let me ask you a question. So you come away from a session and you say, that was a good session today. So what makes it a good session for you?
I rarely come away thinking it was a good session. Like, honestly, I mean, I'm the worst for. I'm really lucky because the coaches I have, I got pretty small. I got a tight knit bunch of coaches, and literally after the majority of sessions, we hang out for 10 minutes, and it's just a case of talking about what did we think about that session, what was good about it, what was bad about it, what could we do, what will we change, what will we do better. A lot of the times I find it's so back to your question, when I walk away from what I feel is a good session, I'm trying now as I get older to not take into account factors that are like outside of my control, right? So if the kids are not well behaved, or they are well behaved tonight, that's kind of down the list for me now, because I know I don't really directly control that.
Nah, they have a whole day before they get to you. I mean, we forget that sometimes.
So I'm trying as I get older to try and look at sessions a little bit more objectively and go, okay, you know what? If I take out that part of, there was some kids that were maybe not as engaged or just weren't on their game tonight, or they didn't perform well. Okay, what about it on the whole was good? So I think if I can see some of the whatever activity that we're working on, if I can see the concept or the principle or something, good happening in that activity some of the time, that's good. If the session if it's organized and there's not a lot of downtime and it flows well, for the kids I coach, like high engagement and lots of ball rolling time, I guess is the term now. So I guess I look at each activity and look at how well did it hit the criteria, right? Did it help the kids understand the concept or principle we want to work on? Did they enjoy the activity? I.e., were they engaged? Did they have fun? And a lot of times now, I'm just pulling random kids aside and just asking them. Even with my 5, 6, 7, even my 5, 6, 7-year-olds, like, what did you like about? What was your favorite part of the session tonight? Which activity? If I said you could only do one of these activities again on Wednesday, which one would it be? Which one did you not like? Why did you not like it? Right. So I think that's something that we don't do enough. It's almost that adult mentality, right? As well, they're a kid, I'm the adult, so why would I? Yeah. At the end of the day, they're the customer, right? Or they're the not the customer, but they're the participant. So what I think was good about, and I've had that many times where I'm like, oh, that activity was horrible. I didn't like the look of it, or I didn't, and the kids loved it.
Yeah, I would say I was the same as you as a coach when I coached. When I first started coaching, you're almost going into it like, I know what's better for them. They might not think this is a good session, but this is what they need. And if they're not liking it, you're almost sticking to your guns, trying to be stubborn and get frustrated. And then you get frustrated and you almost take it out on them during the session. That's how I was early on, because I didn't know better. And it was actually a frustration of myself not doing a good session, but I think it's because they're not doing it well. Or maybe it was a boring passing session. I realized 9-year-old girls don't want to stand around doing passing. So
Right.
it took me a long time to figure that out. And then it's simple as it sounds, like you said, if you just ask them what works for them, and you base sessions around what works for them, because that's what it's about. It's not about what works for you, it's about what works for them. So once I started doing that, yeah, of course you're working on certain things, so it's not exactly what works for them, because they play lightning all day, or these games where you just take shots at the goal.
Right.
But they should enjoy it, and they should look forward to training. Is the base of everything. If they don't look forward to it and not enjoying it, they're not going to want to be there. They're not going to learn anything.
But that's kind of a tough ask, right? It's almost like asking the kid, did you enjoy school? And they're like, no, it was boring.
Yeah.
Well, why? Oh, because we had math and we had religion. Oh, what was good? Oh, well, gym or recess. Well, you know, as coaches, we can't just have a full day of gym and recess. So I find that the trick is to try and find activities and sessions that work on the things that you feel are important to work on, but that they can also enjoy at the same time. And the other thing, I'm always asking these, you know, I have these kind of philosophical arguments and debates with myself, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think that's how I get better as a coach, is because I never think that what I'm doing is always going to be the right way. So, for example, like lately I'm kind of trying to think, why do I feel the way I feel about certain things? So, for an example, like coaches playing games like sharks and minnows.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. I'm just like, why do we need to dress this up? Like, why have we got to trick kids into? And then on the flip side, I'm like, well, they're kids, it's fun. But then my challenge is, okay, can I run that activity as a soccer activity using soccer terminology, and can I still make it fun?
100%. Yeah,
my goal is always to try and run soccer, activity sessions. Start teaching, kids some terminology that we're going to use long term, and then, okay, how do I make it's like a 4v1 rondo. How do you make that fun? I've had a lot of people sort of say to me, yeah, that's boring though, kids don't like it. I'm like, well, what are you doing as a coach to make that a fun activity?
Yeah, if you're a good coach, you should be able to adapt and turn anything fun, right? You can make it a competition. You can add the best coaches are adaptable, right? And if it's not working, how do you make it fun? How do you engage them? I would not get into it, but I'm not a big fan of rondos, so that's another conversation. But I do think there's benefits, but I just think I've seen way too many coaches rely on a ladders, hurdles, warm up, passing pattern, rondo, and that's the whole session. It's the same session every week. It's boring, but it looks great. Never any thought process behind it. And that has turned me off it massively. But that's a whole other conversation. But when we go back to, let's say, sharks and minnows, I'm trying to think if that's the same as the game I play. But we play games like a Queen of the Ring I play with my girls. We have a ball each. You're trying to kick someone else's ball out, but keep your ball. And the last couple of people have a ball. And again, this was a fun game I used to love to do, and I used to not want to do it as much. But then I realized the benefits of it is huge. Like learning to keep the ball under pressure, head up, protecting it, foot skills to get away. There's about 50 1v1s in that game. So what I started to do is play the game and then talk about it after. Like, how does this relate to a soccer game? Do you have to keep the ball under pressure? Yeah, how do you do that? And then you turn it into, maybe I would have done a whole activity where it would have been a 1v1 or something. And it would have taken me 20 minutes. But in that 5-minute game, they've got all the things I wanted to get out of it. And they're having the best time ever because it's competitive, it's fun. You got girls that are maybe a bit shy, but they're going to kick somebody else's ball away where they wouldn't have done it before. Or they're learning how to protect their ball with 6 other people around them. It's awesome. So I think I was definitely against certain games, and I've learned to turn it into very good coaching points, I think.
Yeah, I just started to try and look at every activity I do or we do, and I'm slowly trying to I've cut we have about 40 activities that we use, and that's it.
Awesome.
For 5-year-olds all the way up to our 12, 13-year-olds.
Yeah, you don't have
Same activities, there's variations. Like, I think there's easily ways that you can take the same activity and use it for 6-year-olds and you can use it for 12-year-olds. So
100%.
with the coaches we have and the players we have, like our goal is to, now it's the tough thing is you're bombarded with different activities and sessions. I mean, there's thousands of them, right? So for me, it's trying to find, okay, what is a core activity that teaches a certain principle or technique and is game-like or part of the game. And then if I see a new activity, it has to be significantly better than what we have for it to be replaced.
Yeah. But also, like, these kids, I love working with the younger ones. I've worked with all ages. But my favorite is the foundation stage players. But once they figure out a game the first time, you need to play it 2 or 3 times so they can get all the benefits out of it. So there's no problem playing the same game or same activity more than once. I think I've been guilty of always trying to find something else, and then I end up doing too much, and it's not enjoyable, it doesn't work. And then you're spending half the session explaining it or trying to get it to go well, where, like I said, I'll start the first session with that Queen of the Ring, do it for the first few weeks. By the 3rd week, they go straight into it, they know what they're doing, they enjoy it, and you're getting all the coaching points in now rather than explaining the game. And it's awesome. And I think, like you said, if you have a core 10 sessions with the foundation stage, first 2 years, that's all you need. You could do the defensive side, the attacking side with the same session.
Well, it also makes it way easier for you. I mean, again, we as a club, whatever we are, academy, we train our own coaches. So we don't send our coaches externally for education. So it also makes it far easier when all of our coaches are running the same activities, right? So now any coach who's been there 6 months can easily step in and help out a new coach with the activity. It's also easier on the coach because the kids have probably played the activity and know what's going on. And I think, like you said, but this is where you, again, right, there's never a scientific approach to coaching because no one's really testing anything, right? So it's you kind of, I think you have to do certain things. Like, so for example, should I stick to just one topic for the whole session? Or should I have a variety of principles, topics, or whatever you're working on, techniques? What I've found is with the younger players, one topic doesn't work.
Yeah, you have to address it. You can have a one end goal, but you've got to mix in a few other things, otherwise they get bored, right?
And also looking at the very limited time you have.
Yeah, you do have a limited time, yeah.
So if you go with this kind of modular approach where it's like, for example, with technique, if you're we're going to work on dribbling for the first 3 weeks, and then we'll move on to passing for 3 weeks. Like, by the time they get back around to dribbling, you're assuming that they learn how to dribble and retained all that information in the first 3 weeks, which is just not feasible. I don't think. Again, not a behavioral scientist, but I would hazard a guess based on what I've seen that my approach, and again, it's based on purely my own reference of what sessions the kids enjoy more, is kind of like that sprinkling approach. So I need to I would rather get 2 or 3 principles and as many techniques in every session rather than work in these blocks.
No, I agree. And this is something I completely took a flip around. So I would work on way too much passing too young. And now I don't do any passing in the first whole year. And I say don't do any passing. They do passing, but that's not our focus. So, and maybe controversial, but I'll explain. So I think the foundation stage, so the first year we get them, it's literally called keep the ball. And every session is focused on keep the ball. And we can do 10 million sessions, but that's the focus, whether it's keep it in a 1v1, take on a player in a 1v1, protect the ball. Every player needs to be good on the ball. Because I've had it before. I worked on passing too soon. Took a team from U9, U10, U11, winning everything, fantastic. Got to U12. These girls can't take players on. They can't turn under pressure. We're playing at a high level now where everybody needs to be good on the ball. Can't just give it all the time. But I've done it the other way around now, and I've had girls who I've taken from U9 to U10 to 11. And we're working on passing now, a couple of years in, it's so much different because everyone's got a good first touch. Everyone can turn out of pressure, and it's a lot better, and they're comfortable dribbling. I don't think you can do it the other way around. I don't think you can work on passing too soon and then go into foot skills, especially with girls. I work mainly with girls. I've enjoyed it.
Can you not do both at the same time? That would be
That's
my
what I'm saying.
that would be my argument. Like, can we not, again, and I guess that there's a difference between it being modular and it not being the focus. So I mean, for me at the foundation phase with our players, I don't really have any focus on any techniques. It's, I want to teach them as much as I can all the time. Yeah. So for me, it's more of a case of, I mean, I have the same. We have a heavy focus on keep the ball, right? Don't kick it away, keep the ball. But then on the flip side, if I see a player who's constantly getting the ball and dribbles into 5 players and loses it every time, then surely I have to step in and ask them if that's a successful strategy for them or what else could they do. So therefore, automatically, some passing has to come in no matter what the age. So I think, this is the danger.
I'm not doing a passing session though.
No, nor do I. But I mean, if you play game, right? This is my argument, right? If you play games and you have a game-based kind of, many of your activities are game-based, then there's going to be everything in it. There has to be.
Yeah,
there's going to be passing. There's going to be dribbling. There's going to be keeping the ball, right? So it's almost like I don't think of my activities or sessions in terms of anything technical anymore at all.
Yeah, I think
I'll design activities that will bring out certain things more. Like if I want them to dribble, then I'll set up my game, my field that will promote that or how it's structured. But I think one of the things that we're guilty of is we don't teach young players how to play early enough.
And what do you mean? Actually play a game, or you mean?
I don't think we teach them principles and concepts in a age-appropriate manner. So, number one problem I think everyone would agree on in grassroots youth soccer is that everyone chases the ball.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I don't think we work on sessions. I don't think we structure games to teach them not to do that and why and how to use space and use teammates.
I agree.
I think we wait till we worry about the technique when if you change the game format and you work on when to go to the ball, when not to go to the ball, you can fix a lot of that problem very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, not very quickly, but once you fix the problem, the game changes completely. So
I think so. I think, and again, a lot of things can be fixed by just changing the format. So when my girls get there, I've already got like a few small fields set up and it's 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3. So you're already taking away the ball being crowded too much because you're not doing more than 3v3. They'll still crowd maybe 3v3, but you've got 1v1s, you've got 2v2s. And then obviously you mentioned, if your teammate has the ball, it doesn't help by crowding her. And then you've already, you keep mentioning that, they spread out very quickly. My thing is, and I did it before, and when I say things like I don't agree with, it's generally because I did it and it was wrong. So I'm never having to go at somebody else. Is I tried to work on spreading out and passing with U9s. I realized these are the most boring sessions for these kids. They don't want to be told where to stand. They just want to play. They just want to get going. So how do you implement these little things without slowing it down, keeping it fun, but you're almost sneaking these coaching points in while they're having a great experience and having a great game and constantly playing. I've got a great U10 team now who've, not because of where they are in the league, doesn't mean anything to me, but they've been in the top division, won the top division a couple of seasons. And I've never done a session on positioning, and we've never done a possession session passing. But you watch them play, they can pass, they all spread out. Because in the games, or when we finish off with a 5v5, I talk about it then during the game while they're playing. But I never do a session based on it. And I used to, do a session where you stand here and you stand here, and if you passed it here, 8 years old, 9 years old, I cringe when I think about it, because I think about how boring that must have been for them, but I wanted something out of it. And I think that's what I've taken from it. And I realized I've seen the outcome doing it differently. I've seen the benefits of how good they can be, and they can get it by not having structured sessions where it's so like, you stand here, you do this. You can do it in different ways. Like I said, games, within a game, you could learn on these things. But for me, fundamentally, if they don't know how to dribble or they don't know how to control the ball, they're not confident having the ball at their feet, you can forget everything. They don't want the ball, doesn't matter how good they are. That's why I say that.
And then the skill is, how can you develop activities where it's like the message is pretty clear, right? Like everything needs to be more game-like.
Yeah, 100%.
But we still have a high percentage of people out there doing stuff that doesn't look anything like the game.
I think that's because of lack of, and I work with the younger ones, I don't know how you think, but I realize I have a lot more control of my sessions now by not being in control as much as I used to be. I can stand back, get them going. I know exactly what's going on. It should look a little bit chaotic if it's a really good session at the foundation stage, I think. There should be a lot going on.
Yeah.
But before, it was like, if my kids aren't standing on that cone, parents are watching, other coaches might be looking at me. This is not organized. I look like a terrible coach. But if I got one on that cone, she's doing that, it looks like a great session.
But in reality, it wasn't. I think that right there is a fundamental problem, right? And it's just, it's probably causes a trickle down from the pay to play issue. And there's nothing wrong, again, like there's nothing wrong with pay to play, right? You have to pay to play. And I think sometimes it's how much we pay. But I think a lot of coaches, they care far too much about what it looks like and what the parents think. And in all honesty, most of the parents don't really understand what's going on. So our sessions for our young kids, usually we have 4 or 5 mini pitches set up and 2 other stations, and they just rotate around. So 75% of the time they are playing a 3v3 game, something of that nature. And I kind of was talking to a parent, the typical, a common parent comment, right, is, well, they're just playing games.
Oh, they love that, yeah.
And my response was, well, what do you think the best way to learn to play a game is? I said, if you're going to play Monopoly, I said, do you get the board out and you just sit and you count the money and put the houses in groups? And I'm like, no, you play the game, right? And I think that's something that we're far too removed from, is allowing them is to coach through the game.
Yeah.
And I had this discussion the other day with Rob Porter, and we were saying it would be interesting to do a scientific study, right? And I'm not sure how ethical it would be, but take 25 6-year-olds that have never played, or 40, split them into 2 groups of 20, and one group does structured sessions with all the coaching points and learning, and the other group, all they do is play. Multiple formats, small games, and see which group at the end of 6 months, a year, are better at playing the game. The kids that learn all the the technical aspects and did the structure sessions, or the ones that just straight up played.
I think the problem is you'll get coaches or parents that will still say, the ones that did the structure, they'll see little things and say, well, she's spread out, so she got it, she understands better, but she hasn't touched the ball. And when it comes to her, she tries to give it every time she gets it. I get that from parents a lot as well. They have a different idea of what they want a player to look like, and they don't understand. Sometimes they think the one, like, let's say you had a player that runs into 5 people, and every time she gets it, she probably beats 2 or 3 and then loses it by the 4th one. And they go crazy, my parents. They hate it. But if a girl kicks the ball every time she gets it and kicks it as far as she can, she'll get a round of applause. Both have lost the ball.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is I used to try and get rid of that player that dribbled too much. Because I thought it was on me. Parents are moaning, like, she makes it look terrible just dribbling too much. And instead, I've gone the opposite way. And I've created players now who just love the ball and are so good dribbling. And all you have to do is just teach them, guess what? You can't dribble through 5 people. Sometimes you've got to pass it. When's the right time to dribble? When's the right time to turn? So don't take it out of their game. Just change it and give them the right ideas, and they can make the decisions for themselves. So I guess what I was trying to say was, yeah, I think you're completely right. The game's based. You're playing the game, learn to play the game. And then it's all about the coaching. It's as simple that we can have 2 coaches doing the exact same session, but it's what you put in as a coach, the comments you make, how you make them feel is going to make them better. So there are terrible coaches that just let them play because it's lazy coaching, because they don't actually coach them. They think they just chuck them into a game. But I'm assuming, just from the stuff you say as well, it's like you're doing great coaching within a game environment. It's awesome. And it's the best way to learn at a younger age. My kids sprint to training because I've got 3v3 field set up. Before, I used to not have anything set up and just make them do laps. And guess what? I'm getting nothing out of that. Now they're there 10 minutes early.
Yeah, the more we can, I think the more we can get those younger players playing and find ways to coach the things that we feel are important within those games, the better off we'll be. Because I think there's a big, again, right, the big debate and over what you call it, transference of skill, right, from an activity into a game. So yeah, rather than try and figure out, okay, do I do unopposed practice? Do I do opposed? Do I do unopposed interleaved activities? Like, what's going to transfer to the game? One thing I know, right, the transfer to the game is the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm trying, what we're trying to do is cut out as much of that, well, does this transfer to the game or does this not, and do it in the game. It's not as easy.
No, of course not. But that's what good coaching is, right? It's hard. It's you as a coach are trying to create an environment where there's a lot going on, but you're completely in control of it. And it's not structured as it used to be, but you're still getting the coaching points out of there. It's hard because you have to be adaptable. Every situation is different and it's not going to go perfect. And when you realize that, and you're still able to be relaxed and understand they're still getting something out of it if you keep it productive in the comments you're making. I think half the battle, like you said, is people are so worried about how they look as a coach or worried about people watching them. They tend to stay away from sessions that might not go well. You know, I had a coaching evaluation at my DOC evaluating me last week, and I've got a few sessions I've done many times. My girls are brilliant. I chose a session I'd never done before. And I thought, this could go terrible, this could go great, but I want to do something that's going to challenge me. Because if it doesn't go great, it's how am I going to adapt in that second? Because I want to be a better coach. And I think,
again, like, it's back to your original question, right? Of like, what is going great? Like, is it? And I think far too many of us, we judge ourselves or evaluate ourselves based on how good did it look, how well did the kids perform it, and maybe we need to look at it a little bit differently and go, well, if it looks good and they're performing it well all the time, then maybe I'm not challenging them and I need to make it more difficult. I need to make it harder. They need something new, right?
Exactly. I'm 100% with that. I don't like sessions that, like, I've seen it, the passing sessions or the passing patterns where it looks great because everyone's doing everything they should be doing. And you're just like, who's being challenged here? It shouldn't look great. It maybe looks great for you and parents watching. This is great. Look at this passing. But then why is it going so great? You've got to challenge them all the time. Otherwise, no one's going to get better. And as a coach, you have to be willing to say, it didn't work today, and challenge yourself and do sessions that are a bit more tricky and a bit more harder for you. Otherwise, you're not going to get better. We can't preach all the time to the kids to challenge themselves, and we don't challenge ourselves as coaches. It's definitely been a challenge for me. Lots of not to change the subject quickly, but it's something I think about all the time. Is what's some of your challenges as a coach, or ways that you've challenged yourself?
Oh, I got plenty of challenges as a coach.
Yeah, I've already got a couple, and I like to think about. It's something I thought about recently. So, what would you say? You put yourself into different challenges, or what do you generally something you find challenging that you've had to start to deal with?
I think from day one for me, like one thing I learned, like just due to the structure of our program, our club, the kids we take, I've always coached mixed ability groups and mixed age groups. So I don't think it's been rare in my 9 years that I've had a group of U9s and they've all been similar ability level. So one of the greatest challenges I've had as I've coached is learning to deal with that, learning to explain it to the kids, learning to deal and explain it to parents, and then learning how to make that work in a session where I've got, maybe 3 or 4 kids that might be 8 out of 10 ability, and then I've got, 3 or 4 that are 2 out of 10. So that's been a challenge. But the way we structured our club and programs, it's always going to be that way. Like we don't do the typical, we don't have a team-based approach. We have a player-based approach. So, and there's no tryouts. Everyone gets to join, and then groups are formed, and we deal with it. So that's been a challenge. I think another challenge is if we're being honest, is my enthusiasm for coaching goes up and down.
100%. Yeah.
It's all I do. It's all I think about 24/7. 5-6 days a week for 9 years. I go through these spells where I'm not like 100% enthused to go to practice and do a session. I'm just, honestly, I'm not. Some days I'm just, I'll go through.
Human, right?
I'll go through a few weeks where I'm just like, I'm lucky enough now that I'm in, I have the position where if I don't want to, I don't have to, right? I can. So for me, it's recognizing, managing that kind of, not necessarily energy level, but enthusiasm level. And then there's other days where I'm just like right into it. And I'm like, okay, I'll take over the session and just run it. And so I think that's been as I've been in it longer and longer and I get older and older, is I don't really have any problem. Not delegating, but letting other coaches run sessions. But I think it's probably almost the flip side where I'm letting other coaches run sessions too much, when I need to actually get back in and coach some sessions and almost do a demo for the coaches, right? So they can see what they can do better. So I think that's been, definitely that's been a challenge.
I would say most coaches are the same. I definitely have the same, and me and a couple other guys, we talk about that. You get burnt out sometimes, especially I train. This is my full time, so I'm doing it 5-6 days a week sometimes with my own individual stuff and with the club, and it is tiring. It's mentally dealing with parents, to be honest with you, dealing with the kids. Sometimes it gets like you lose a little bit of your enthusiasm and enjoyment. And the challenge is, how do you when that is happening, how do you get out of it? It's tough. I think we just need a break sometimes.
Yeah, I think I found in the early days, dealing with some parents was a challenge, but now that we've really embraced more the parents being partners in this and being more transparent with them and explaining more why we do what we do. I'm lucky. Like our parent group on the whole, like 95% is fantastic.
That's awesome. That makes a big difference.
I don't have to deal with the stupid shouting at the sidelines. Like their behavior, how they deal with their own kids really helps us and supports us. So, I don't have those challenges. I think as well, trying to understand that, like, a good friend of mine always says it's the coaching roller coaster, right? Tonight I'm going to have an absolutely great session, and then exactly the same bunch of kids on Monday, it's going to be shit. and realizing that sometimes it's just out of my control. They all had a shitty day at school, or they were running late. Mum and dad didn't feed them. They got in trouble, right? And so trying to not get too up or down about a session, right? Or actually trying to actually enjoy more the good sessions. So when I do have a good session,
enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy it. And I think that's one thing my new coaches struggle with, is they're very tied to individual kids' behavior, how the session went. They get very frustrated by that.
But the key there is new coaches, I would say. It's taken me a long time to figure that out. I'm comfortable with who I am as a coach. I'm not worried about people judging me. I think that took a lot of stress off me. And I've done it enough now. I've dealt with probably every situation dealing with 8 or 9-year-old players. So I'm already comfortable dealing with it. And like you said, once you know kids are going to have bad days and good days, and it's not a reflection of you, but you're in control of how you deal with it. You're not in control of how they're going to deal with it. So I have girls that, like, if they're I can tell already she's like in a bad mood, she's not reacting. So I just, I pull her aside and I say, how was your day today, whatever. Do you want to have a sit down for a couple of minutes, or what do you want to do? What's the next activity you've been wanting to do for a while?
Yeah.
Because it's not about me. It's not about what I was trying to get out of the session. Sometimes you have to change it and then be adaptable for the kids. And that was one of the hardest things I've learned, but been the best things I've learned. And then you have a better session. Guess what? When you're smiling and you're running around, having a great time with the kids, they're having the best time ever. You're in a great mood. They're in a great mood.
I think another thing I've kind of come to accept as well, is I used to get really pissed off about attendance, right?
Yeah, I still do, to be honest.
And I've got into the mindset of it doesn't really matter to me. Like I'm good enough that I can adapt any activity, any session. And now I'm just like trying to be more enthusiastic and put more into the kids that show up on a given night and give them my best, rather than being pissed off about 3 or 4 people that didn't show up, and realizing that 9 times out of 10, it ain't the kid's fault either. It's the parent.
It's rarely the kid's fault. I think I completely agree. Like, I feel like it's taken me a while to be comfortable now. Whoever turns up, I've done so much coaching now that I've got a session for everyone. I can adapt, I can change. I think my thing is, we are a travel club now, and then you get to a certain age where these parents, they demand a lot from you, or they all want to be on the top team, and why are we not doing this and doing that? And then when they just don't turn up to training, don't let you know, or they miss this because they got this to do, that's bothered me, because they expect so much from you and they want to know why we're not doing this, but then when it suits them, they just don't want to.
Why does the cake taste like shit? And it's like, well, you didn't put any of the eggs in this week.
That's basically what it is. And I think that's when I say attendance bothers me, but not, to your point, I still spend the positive energy on the ones that are there, and I can adapt to the numbers. So that's a completely different story, but that's something that does still stress me out, especially when you take it very seriously, what you do as well. And when they're expecting a lot from you, you got to put that expectation back on them too. But I'm not talking about the little ones here. This is like the older players, I guess I would say that with. The little ones, they're the best sessions. No matter how my day's going, I have the best time. You got a 7-year-old kid running up to you, telling you some ridiculous story about school, and you're having a great, how can you be in a bad mood when you have them sessions? I love it. And then when you stop loving it, then you've got to question what you're doing, I guess. Or you need a break, probably.
Yeah, I think it's trying to have a clear idea, right, of what you want each player to kind of get by a certain time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. You still got to have your goals, your structure.
Yeah.
But it's like I say, like my session, it should look like organized chaos. I feel like at the younger ages. As it gets older, it's a little bit different. But the younger ages, I know what I'm getting out of that session. No matter what it looks like, I know exactly what's happening. They all got a ball at their feet. They're all working on certain things.
So with your younger, like 5, 6, 7s, like the beginners, like, again, I hate all this age shit. Like, really, it should just be beginners, intermediates, somewhat advanced.
Yeah, because you could be a beginner at whatever age. Yeah.
You could be 12 and still, like, it doesn't really matter. What's your kind of idea or philosophy on unopposed activities opposed activities? Do you use both? Do you use more one than the other? Like, it sounds like
So I would say
you use more opposed activities, lots of 1v1s, and
I love 1v1s. That's my favorite thing to do with the younger ages, and I never used to do it, to be honest with you. And it was a light bulb for me. I would say unopposed. I use basically my session structure for the foundation or the newer players is always small-sided games as they get there, 2v2s, 1v1s, 3v3s, depending on ability. If they're new, 1v1s work better because they just get the ball more. They're not standing there loads of the ball.
So why do you do that first?
I do that as soon as they get to training, every session, because one, is fun. They've been at school all day. They want to run around. Two, I used to wait for everybody to get there and then get them to do like a warm-up. What waste of time that was. They're having fun. And I almost leave that 5-10 minutes for them to chat, have a laugh, enjoy themselves, and then boom, now they're focused. They're able to get that out of their system. I used to hate school, get out of school at 3:30. Imagine going straight into another environment where it's controlled and you're being told what to do. So I like to have 10 minutes for them to just enjoy themselves, and they're playing. They're getting those touches of the ball. They're getting 20, 40 touches that they wouldn't have got otherwise. And I've had kids turn up now 20 minutes early, 15 minutes early, which probably used to bother me before because now we've got to wait for everybody to get here before we start. But I get there early. I set the fields up. They want to play extra 20 minutes. Why not? So everyone does that.
Yeah.
And then I would do like some skills, a skill game. Like I said, Queen of the Rings, one I've been doing recently. That's why it's in my head, but they work a ball each. But some catching games. It could be, my littlest ones. The youngest one, we were doing one called Stuck in the Mud, where everyone has a ball each. Catchers have a ball in their hand. They try to throw it at your ball. If your ball gets hit, you put it on your head, open your legs up. You've got to pass the ball through the legs to freedom. And then maybe I'll mix that in and say, well, you've got to do a Ronaldo chop through their legs to freedom. So you're working on that skill. And that'll be for 10 minutes. Everyone's got a ball. It's a million 1v1 situations. There's opposed, but in a different environment. And then we'll go into more of a situation where you'd have a 1v1 or a 2v1 or 2v2 with a defender. And then we go back into games, basically. That would be my foundation stage kind of structure.
Do you stick to that structure all the time?
I mean, around about. It's never, I don't have a specific, we're doing 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. But generally, I want to do something where they work on a skill, because they love working on new skills. I like to have a game where they have to use it in a situation where they're under pressure. And then they got a scrimmage, small-sided. It's just the way it is for me.
Do you ever experiment with that structure and be like, no, I'm going to try something completely different today? How did you get to that structure? Because that was the structure you started with.
Doing lots of terrible sessions, I'll be completely honest with you. So I was obsessed because I grew up, this is what we did. And, when I was coaching, it was all about possession, and Barcelona were the best team in the world, Spain, and 10 years ago. And it was possession, right? So I'm thinking, all right, I've got to do possession games with them. Everyone's got to pass and work on that. And I used to get so frustrated because it wouldn't work. The sessions weren't going well because they were bored and they would act out. The kids that don't have good attention spans don't want to wait for the ball to come to their feet. The passes weren't good because they're not good at passing, and then they can't control the ball, half of them. And I wanted it to look good. So anyway, I realized these sessions are not working. They don't want to get there and do a big warm-up. Why am I doing a warm-up with 9-year-olds in the first place? I don't know. No one ever told me otherwise. They don't need to stretch. Someone told me, you've never seen a kid pull a hamstring running out of the playground from school at lunchtime. And they sprint out to the playground. No one pulls a hamstring. So why are you doing standing stretches with them? So that's why I started doing small-sided games to start with. And then the other stuff was, how do I get them into doing stuff with a ball each, learning a skill where it's not stand, run to that cone, do this skill, run to the back of the line. So I do a ball each, and we start off with very simple, like Messi touches, little small touches, and Ronaldo touches. That might be the first ever session, where it's bigger touches in a small crowded area. We're working on keeping the ball close but fast, big touches, but still keeping it under control. And then we'd learn our first skill that first weekend. It'd be a pullback turn, let's say. And then I turn that into a game of, I don't know, some kind of thing like Spider-Man or Stuck in the Mud, where it involves that move. So they're doing a 1v1, it's opposed, it's a fun game, everyone's got a ball, doesn't matter your ability, no one's really losing against somebody else specifically. They're having a great time, but they're learning something. They don't realize they're doing a session, they think they're playing Spider-Man, but they've done 50 pullback turns. They've had about 50 1v1 situations from defender behind, defender on the side, defender from the front. All
so
in this
you're trying to create more, more chaos.
I'm trying to create organized chaos. 100%.
More perception demands going on in each activity.
One of the advices I got from a coach that I respect, that I always like asking, and something I would ask you is, what would you wish you would have done sooner? And they always said, I wish I would have done more interference in my sessions. I wish I would have had them scanning at a younger age, but not calling it a scanning session, but they should be going across each other all the time. And these kids just naturally learn how to dribble with their head up without you doing a session and calling it a scanning session with 8-year-olds. So every warm-up and every 1v1 game is not just 1v1, because the game doesn't work like that. So let's just, like I said, my simple game of stuck in the mud. Someone's trying to throw their ball at my ball from that side. I've got to constantly, and then someone's dribbling around me at the same time. You do that every session for 10, 20 minutes. They're learning without you telling them what you're actually learning on, about scanning, keeping the ball under pressure, checking your shoulder. How do I protect it from a player this way? How do I protect it from a player this way? But you haven't said, all right, stand there. This player's going to dribble at you from here. How are you going to protect it? But then, sorry, I like to go on these rants, but I think we forget that these younger players are smarter than we think as well. So I bring them in after and I say, how does this game relate to soccer? Do you have to protect the ball sometimes? Yeah. So does that relate to a game? Yeah. So how did you protect it? And I asked the kids. Well, I put the ball here and the player was there. So did you use your body to protect it? So show me. Now everybody show me. Let's try that game again and see if you can put your body in between the ball and defender. And they go back and they do it. And just coaching that way, I don't know what you would call that kind of style of coaching, whatever, but it was an eye-opener. It works for me anyway. I enjoy it. I feel like the kids enjoy it more. And that's how my foundation stage, I would say, works.
And are you changing, so your weekly or your sessions as they go by?
Yeah, different games, different skills. But the overall way I feel like they learn the best, I still keep it very similar. But like I said, I don't have a structured session plan.
What's your for your foundation phase, or your beginners? What would be the 3 most important things that you're trying to teach them?
First and foremost, I guess teach them. But I always say the first and foremost thing, they got to enjoy coming to training and love playing. That's it. Otherwise, you lost them.
No, you can't have that one.
Take that one out of the way.
That's not something you're teaching. You're creating that by.
Yeah, I'd say it's want the ball, so not be scared to have the ball. Because the younger, especially with the girls, you have a few that don't think they're as good as others, and they kind of hide. So I want everyone to feel comfortable wanting the ball and being comfortable having the ball. Keep the ball. So under pressure, can you keep the ball? Don't be scared to keep it under pressure. The other one is, I love skills. I love seeing young girls being confident and trying skills, whether it's a scissor, a pullback. So I want to get out of the session is that they are excited about trying a new move, regardless if it goes well or not. They lose the ball. I want them excited to try it and be confident on the ball. So keeping the ball, wanting the ball, and being confident on the ball, I guess, is my 3 things I want.
So you've been through this cycle now, right, with a group of players?
Yeah, I would say since I've got to the point where this is, again, maybe in 5 years I'm going to change my mind, but this is where I feel like I know what I'm doing now with the younger ages. I've had a team for 3 years now doing that and moved up and changed my sessions as I've gone, but with that kind of idea at the foundation stage.
I'd be interested to see, do you have a game this weekend?
Sadly, today we officially found out that we're done for the whole winter now. Chicago is in lockdown. We can't train. We were supposed to be doing 4 more weeks, so no games, no coaching. I found out today, so not a great day for me.
Yeah, I think I'm about one of my locations is about to be shut down. So, whoops.
Absolutely sucks, but honestly, I'd love, if I did have a game, I'd love to film it and stuff, and especially my U10 girls who've had 2.5 years of that kind of coaching. I love it.
What I was going to ask you was, I watch a lot of youth games, and I see a lot of the older, whatever, U10, 11, 12. I still see a high prevalence of ball comes to a player and they just kick it away, right? They just want to get rid of it. And I'm wondering if your games and the players on your team, like I have one clip of a girls' game. I think it's like a minute 10, and the ball is just constantly like kicked from team to team to team, back and forth for literally a minute. It's like 95. I think there's like one instance where one of the girls gets the ball and dribbles it 5 yards. And I'm just wondering if your games are starting to look different now, and that doesn't happen 95% of the time, but is it now, maybe does it happen 20% of the time, or is it 10%?
I would say
because of the message and I mean, again, I think it's pretty easy to figure out why those games look that way. Is because nobody at the foundation phase, at the 5, 6, 7-year-old phase, no one has ever given these young players the message of keep the ball, don't kick it away. That's not what we want.
It's that, and the other side of the coin is you're going to let in a lot of goals if you're asking your defenders not to kick it away, and you have to be comfortable. One, dealing with the parents and explaining what you're working on. Two, whoever's in charge, let's say you're the DOC, you have to be making me feel comfortable. This is what we work on as a club, whether you lose or not. I'm not concerned. I know what you're working on. So once I'm comfortable, my club, this is what we're working on. They trust me. My parents know what we're working on. I'm not concerned about the score as much as I used to be. So I tell them a good U8 game, so our first season, it should be loads of goals in it. If it's a good game, it should be loads of goals, because you're teaching them to dribble, keep the ball. Defenders are going to lose the ball because they're trying to turn, they're trying to take it and then find a space and then pass it. If you're sitting there and you're having a 0-0 game at U8, there's problems, I would say. So yeah, my girls and the parents, like it's the funniest thing. Even with you as an adult, as a coach knowing better, you got your girl, she's dribbling across the goal, and every part of your body wants to say, don't go across the goal, just get rid of it. But you don't, because they're trying to learn. And when she does make a mistake and it goes in, you give it a bit of time. You say, Morgan, remember when you dribbled across the goal? Yeah. You lost the ball went in, right? So instead of dribbling across the goal, what would have been a better way to get out of that situation? Maybe I could have turned away from the goal. Boom, get back out there and show me.
Yeah, try that.
I don't care. Every goal that goes in is a mistake that I can teach them better from. But you only get that if you're in an environment with parents and a club where they understand your long-term goal. But don't get me wrong, they still want to see that long-term goal eventually. So you can't get away with that for 5 years. I think they'll start questioning you as a coach. But hopefully, if you're coaching well enough, they get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And the parents are like, wow, they made 2 free passes in a row there, or she dribbled out of pressure 3 times. And they see the difference because I'm explaining it in my emails or my team meetings, what we're working on. And I hope, there's still a % or 2 that will leave and go to another club because they're not letting goals in. But I don't need them.
Is that the soccer police coming to arrest you for not winning enough youth games?
They just heard some of my criminal comments.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it comes down to, again, it's how long have you been, like, as a coach, if you've been doing it long enough and around enough good people, you have the confidence and understanding of the long-term goal. Like, I know my U8 player, my long-term goal is U15, U16. So I don't have to get bogged down what they're doing in the first year. And parents want to see them passing, crossing, spreading out in 1 year. It's insane to me. I know what they're going to do at year 3. I know what they're going to do at year 4, year 5, year 6. So I can be patient and just build them steps.
I find it's more about trying to judge games on moments in the game.
Yeah, 100%.
How many times you see some good things and trying to realize, and if you have the expectation that your 9-10-year-old team is going to go out and perform consistently week in, week out, and even like perform consistently throughout a whole game, then I think you need to give your head a shake. And it's, for me, it's definitely whenever we play games now, it's that kind of percentages thing, right? Like, oh, we did some really good things for 25% of the game today. You know what? And realizing that age and stage, it's probably not much I can do to make it 50%. It's time.
Yeah, it's 100% time. And again, like, with my girls, I make it very clear early on that I just love them. Like, I love watching you guys play. And what we're working on is keep the ball. So every time you guys keep it and you work on trying to not just give it away, keep it and then find a pass or dribble, that's a win for us. And I will just tell you at the end of the game whether I think we played well. And I never talk about the score. And when they come in, they're running to you at half time and they're telling you, did you see when I did that pullback turn? We're losing 5-0. But they know that if you explain that I'm the one that lets you know if we had a good game, and this what means we had a good game, they don't care because you've created that environment. And I think that
one of my coaches the other day came up with a brilliant idea. Like we have on a Saturday, we have a game day for all the kids across our club. And with our little players this week, our youngest ones, like 5-year-olds, I think we ended up, what did we do? Who was it? I think we ended up playing 2v2s. And some weeks we do like a little round robin, right? And we play for the same cup every week. And he said something that kind of made a lot of sense to me. He said, why don't we, instead of doing a round robin with scores, he's like, why don't we do kind of like figure skating score? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, we'll pick the team and give them a score, right, based on how well we think they played across the different games. Almost like, hey, you know what, you guys got a 7.8 today. And that'll be the winner of the team, the sort of little game day. And I thought that was
it probably changed
interesting idea, right? Like throw the score out and which team tried to or played, I hate to say better football, but which team executed more of the things you've been trying to work on.
Yeah, and I bet you in a second, as soon as you change that focus for them, they all change the way they played. And all you've done is just change how you perceive a win is. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, here's one I've been thinking about recently. Give me your opinion on this. Why do we use pug nets? Like 6 foot, 4 foot little pug nets for young players when
you want them to score more goals, probably.
Want them to score more goals.
Small goals don't help.
They love scoring goals. You're not really developing goalkeepers at that point. Like I don't know about you, but the majority of my game formats is no goalkeeper. Yeah. I was just thinking about that.
I'm
like, why wouldn't I use a bigger goal? Like, who cares if the score's 21-20? Like, why don't I make this easiher for them to have more fun? Like, rather than having one small pug net that's really easy to defend. And don't care about goalkeepers.
I would say just for me, it's convenience. I can get more pug goals in my car than I can bigger goals. True. But I completely agree with you. You want more goals, especially if you're working at a younger age. They love scoring a goal. Why not have more goals in the game?
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I don't think you should have 11v11 goals, but goals where you can't just stand there and block it and they get more out of it, 100%. It's changing the variables, right? Again, why are we trying to make it harder for them to do positive things? And if it's scoring loads of goals, then move to a little goal. I like the idea of I think I've seen some of your stuff anyway. I'm not sure if you did this, but why not have different variables on either field? Bigger goals on one field, smaller goals on the other field, bigger field on one field, smaller field, and they all play in the different variables. Because all you're teaching them is to deal with the circumstances that come at them, which is only going to help them better in the game.
Yeah, I did that. We've started doing that where if we've got multiple teams playing, that will set up different size fields, offset goals, diagonal goals, really small, tight to each other goals, long skinny pitches, long fat pitches, and it looks awful.
Yeah, you're like, this is the opposite of what I thought good coaching was, because everything.
Yeah,
cone should be in line.
The funny thing was the first time I set out, one of the coaches showed up and picked up the goal, and he's like, and started moving it, right? He's like, well, it's not in line with that one. I'm like, well, I said, no, I don't want it to be in line today. The kids thought it was fun, right? Because they get to, you move them around the pitches and they get to the new pitch and they're just like, well, this pitch is weird. And now now they've got to try and figure out how am I going to play differently? How am I going to solve the problem?
And our job as coaches, the only reason why we don't have enough creative players in America. What I've learned is you get to a certain age, they're not creative at all. They're not individual. They all play the same way. So doing things like that, you're putting them in a situation where they have to think themselves and how do we work it? And I'm trying to do more and more of that. That's why I think it's brilliant. And I think it's such a small thing, that has so many positive benefits. And some people won't see it that way. They'll think it's stupid. Some people say the way I coach, they don't like it. I love it. And all you're getting is the kids to think more. And I want kids that are going to think more. I want kids that are going to question things. I want kids at U13, 14 are going to sit down at halftime and you're going to hear this great conversation about how to problem solve. That's what a good coaching is. But then I've got other coaches that halftime, I don't hear anybody else talk except for them. They're completely in control of everything. That's not the coach I want to be. And that's just my philosophy. I don't know if everybody else is, but.
Yeah, I'm going to give that big goals or bigger goals, should I say? Like instead of
maybe you have to invest in a bigger car, mate. You might have to get one of them American big cars, pickup trucks.
Yeah. I'll just get a van. Yeah, I got a few different size goals we set up.
I think that's awesome. So I've actually got another Zoom meeting because we just found out today we're not going to be coaching at 10:30, which is our time. So in like 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to let you go. Sadly,
jump off. And all right, well, if you're not going to be coaching, we'll have to do a couple more of these. We'll pick I love it. I'd like to do. I'm doing another kind of version of this, which is I haven't kind of figured out what the name is yet. But do you remember that? You remember that show? You might be a bit too young for this, but do you remember back in England that show on the radio called Desert Island Discs?
They were familiar. Where you
they basically have like a celebrity on, right? And they would have to pick their 5 if they were stranded on a desert island. What would be the 5 records they would take? What would be a luxury item? So I want to do something kind of around that kind of theme where we have youth coaches on, and you have to present to everybody if there was only 3 activities you could coach for the rest of your life, not on a desert island.
I think that's a great question.
What would they be? And can you explain them, give us some graphics or whatever, diagrams, and explain them to everybody else so they can take them away and use them at their sessions with their kids.
And I think everyone would have a good 3 that they know at the back of their mind that they love doing.
Yeah.
But I think that's good. I like that.
But there you go. So I'll give you that as a little task to start thinking about. Thinking about, and then I'll get you back on, and we'll go through those together.
No, definitely. I've got a lot of contacts with coaches in England here and stuff like that. So if you're looking for other people, I can definitely get you into touch with people that do very different, like from academies in London to recreational clubs. I'm sure they'd love to chat to you. So if you want,
I'm trying to keep it focused on kind of, I don't know if grassroots is the word, but younger 5 to 12-year-old beginner kids. I think that's the biggest part of the coaching world that just isn't
I love that
or focused on enough, right? I mean,
I see way too many coaches don't think that's real coaching. They come in, the first thing they want is a team that's like 13 or 14, that's already good, and that's what they want to coach. And if you put them with a younger team, they almost think you're punishing them. It drives me crazy. So I only take younger teams now. I've got one older team.
If you want to improve shit over here, you need more good coaches at the foundation age.
I would say you have to. Your best coach have to be the younger ages. I stand by that 100%. But again, I'm sure you work with it. Sadly, we don't always get a lot of good coaches to work with, so it's hard.
We gotta build better coaches ourselves, right? So, Johnny, you are just as gorgeous as your cartoon character on YouTube. Enjoyed the chat, and let's catch up. I'll DM you later, and we'll set up that next episode.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, mate. Great, thanks for chatting to me.
Bye.
See ya.